Today's choices shape tomorrow. Written and published by Rising Audiobook. Introduction. What if I told you your future is already being written by the choices you are making right now? Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Quietly, invisibly, in ways you rarely notice. Every small decision you make carries more weight than it appears to have. The decision to wake up early or stay in bed. The choice to focus or get distracted. The habit of discipline or delay. In the moment, none of it feels life-changing. But over time, each one quietly redirects the entire course of your life. Most people believe failure comes from one major mistake, but the truth is far more subtle. Failure is usually built from small repeated choices that slowly shape who you become. The days you waste without thinking, the habits you ignore, the standards you allow to slip, these are the real turning points that no one notices until it is too late. Because your habits today are not just actions, they are becoming your identity. They are quietly building either your success or your regret. And here is a truth you cannot escape. You are already becoming someone. The only question is, who? Even a single choice today can completely reshape your life a year from now. 1 hour of deep focus can turn into a skill that changes your future. 1 hour of distraction can become lost potential you will never recover. Skipping just 1 hour of focus today may not feel significant, but repeated over time it can become years of delay in success. But what most people never stop to realize is this: the same day you are living right now is also building your future self, step by step, decision by decision. And once these decisions start stacking up, they don't just influence your life, they start defining it. Because one day you will wake up and notice something unsettling. Your life will no longer feel random. It will feel shaped, either by discipline or by neglect, either by focus or by distraction. And in that moment you won't ask what happened. You will ask, when did I start choosing this life? That question doesn't arrive suddenly. It is created quietly through thousands of ordinary choices that never seemed important at the time. And that is where this journey truly begins. In the invisible moments, in the silent decisions, in the choices you thought didn't matter until they defined everything. Because by the end of this journey, you will understand one powerful truth. Your tomorrow is not something you wait for. It is something you are building with every choice you make next. Chapter 1. The power hidden in small decisions. Most people never realize they are building their future in moments that feel completely ordinary. A single decision, so small it barely registers in your mind, can quietly shift the direction of your entire life. Not in a dramatic way, not instantly, but slowly, almost invisibly, like water shaping stone over time. Life is rarely shaped by one big event. Instead, it is built from micro-decisions repeated every single day. The choice to delay or act, to focus or drift, to learn or to scroll. Individually, they feel insignificant, but together, they form the structure of your future. And here is the hidden truth. One choice never stays alone. It always leads to another. When you choose to wake up late, it becomes easier to skip planning your day. When you skip planning, it becomes easier to waste time. When you waste time, it becomes easier to feel unproductive. This is how life quietly moves, through chains of decisions that seem unrelated in the moment, but are deeply connected in outcome. Most people think success or failure happens suddenly, but in reality, outcomes are delayed results of daily behavior. What you see in someone's life today is not the result of yesterday. It is the result of hundreds of yesterdays stacked together. A successful person did not wake up one day and become focused. They made small decisions repeatedly, choosing discipline over distraction, effort over comfort, learning over entertainment, and those decisions accumulated into results. On the other hand, stagnation does not happen overnight either. It is built through repeated small compromises. A few minutes of distraction turns into hours. A few missed opportunities turn into habits of delay. And slowly, without noticing, life starts to feel stuck. That is why awareness is the first real step to change. You cannot change what you do not notice. Most people live on autopilot, repeating choices without questioning them. They wake up, react to notifications, follow routines they never designed, and end the day wondering why nothing is changing. But the moment you become aware of your micro-decisions, something powerful begins to shift. You start to see patterns. You start to recognize which choices are building you and which ones are quietly breaking you down. Even something as simple as choosing social media over learning every day seems harmless in the moment. It feels like a break, a reward, a small escape, but repeated over time, it creates a silent consequence. While minutes turn into hours of scrolling, skills are not developed, knowledge is not built, and growth is paused. Not stopped suddenly, but slowed down gradually until stagnation becomes normal. And this is where most people miss the truth. They are not failing because of one big mistake. They are simply repeating small decisions that do not support the life they want. But the same principle also works in reverse. A small positive decision repeated consistently can completely transform a life. 10 minutes of reading every day may feel too small to matter. But over months, it builds knowledge. Over years, it builds perspective. And eventually, it builds identity. A few minutes of daily focus becomes discipline. A small effort becomes skill. A simple habit becomes a lifestyle. That is the hidden power inside small decisions. They compound silently, whether you notice them or not. And perhaps the most important realization is this: you are always deciding, even when you think you are not. Choosing to act or not act is still a decision. Choosing to care or ignore is still a decision. There is no neutral ground. Every moment is quietly shaping something, either building your future or slowly limiting it. So the question is not whether you are making decisions. You already are. The question is whether you are aware of the power inside them. Because once you see how deeply small choices shape your direction, you can never look at your life the same way again. Chapter 2. The habit loop that builds your future. There is a moment every day when your life is not decided by motivation, talent, or even luck, but by something far quieter, far more powerful, and almost invisible: habit. Most people think they are making fresh decisions every time they act, but in reality, much of what you do each day is not a decision at all. It is an automated response, a loop, a pattern, a habit running in the background of your mind, without permission, without effort, and often without awareness. This is the hidden system that builds your future. Habits are simply repeated decisions that your brain has learned to automate. At first, an action requires focus. You think about it, you struggle with it, you decide to do it. But after enough repetition, your brain says, "I will handle this for you." And from that point forward, the action becomes effortless, even unconscious. That is where identity begins to form. Because repetition does not just shape behavior, it shapes who you believe you are. A person who studies daily does not just study, they become a learner. A person who trains daily does not just exercise, they become disciplined. And slowly, without realizing it, your habits stop being something you do and start becoming something you are. This is why habits are not just routines, they are identity builders. And the most important part is this: habits compound silently over time. Unlike dramatic changes, habits do not show immediate results. They work like invisible interest in a bank account. A small action repeated daily may feel insignificant at first, but over weeks, months, and years, it grows into something powerful, something undeniable. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. A small habit done every day will always outperform a big effort done once in a while. But there is another side to this truth that people often ignore. Bad habits also compound, just as quietly, just as consistently. Wasting time, avoiding responsibility, delaying important tasks, consuming endless distractions, these do not destroy your life in a single moment. They build it in the wrong direction, one small repetition at a time, and because the change is slow, it often goes unnoticed until the consequences become too large to ignore. That is the danger of habits. They do not warn you while they are forming, they only reveal their results later, and by then the pattern feels difficult to escape. But the same system that creates limitation can also create transformation, because once you understand the habit loop, you can begin to design it instead of being controlled by it. You can replace unconscious behavior with intentional action. You can interrupt the cycle and redirect it towards something meaningful. Even something as simple as 30 minutes of reading every day seems small, almost too small to matter. But when repeated consistently, it transforms into something far greater than time invested. It becomes knowledge, understanding, insight. Over 1 or 2 years, that small habit can build a level of expertise that once felt out of reach, not because of one moment of effort, but because of thousands of repeated moments of choice. And this is the real power of habits. They do not ask for permission, they only ask for repetition. So the question is not whether your habits are shaping your future, they already are. The question is whether you are aware of the direction they are taking you. Because once you understand this loop, you begin to see something clearly. Your future is not built in sudden leaps. It is built in repeated steps you take without even thinking. Chapter 3. Comfort versus Growth Decisions. Every day, often without realizing it, you stand at a quiet crossroads. One path leads to comfort, the other to growth. It does not look dramatic. There are no signs, no warnings, no clear voice telling you which way to go. Instead, it shows up in the smallest moments. The alarm rings in the morning. You feel the weight of sleep pulling you back in. In that instant, a decision is made. Comfort whispers, stay. Growth quietly says, get up. And whichever voice you follow, begins shaping your life. This is the hidden battle behind every meaningful change. Every choice you make is, in some form, a decision between what feels good now and what will serve you later. Comfort gives you immediate relief. Growth demands effort, discipline, and sometimes discomfort. One rewards you instantly, the other rewards you eventually. That is why comfort is so tempting. It feels right in the moment. It asks nothing from you. It allows you to avoid effort, avoid struggle, avoid pressure. But what it gives in the present, it often takes from the future. Growth, on the other hand, rarely feels good at the beginning. It challenges you, it stretches you, it forces you to act when you don't feel like it. And because of that, most people avoid it. Not because they lack ability, but because they are drawn to what is easy. This is where lives begin to separate. Most people consistently choose short-term ease over long-term success. They choose rest over effort, distraction over focus, entertainment over learning, not once, but repeatedly. And over time, those small choices accumulate into a pattern that leads to stagnation. But here is the truth. Comfort is not free. It has a cost. It just delays the payment. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you are borrowing ease from the present and paying for it in the future. Lost opportunities, delayed progress, unfulfilled potential, these are the hidden costs of repeated comfort. On the other hand, growth also has a cost, but it is paid up front. It asks you to be uncomfortable now, so you can be free later. It asks for discipline today, so you can have options tomorrow. It asks for effort in the present, so you can avoid regret in the future. This is why discipline is not punishment. It is a decision, a powerful one. It is the ability to choose what is difficult now in exchange for something better later. And when you understand this, something shifts in the way you see your daily life. You begin to notice that the most important decisions are not the big life-changing ones. They are the small repeated moments where you either move toward growth or fall back into comfort. Take something as simple as waking up early to study or learn. In that moment, staying in bed feels harmless, it feels deserved, it feels comfortable. But choosing to wake up, even when you don't feel like it, is a vote for growth. It is a signal to yourself that your future matters more than your temporary comfort. And that signal, repeated over time, becomes identity. Because every time you choose growth, you are not just improving your situation, you are reshaping who you are. You are becoming someone who acts despite discomfort. Someone who moves forward even when it is difficult. But if you consistently choose comfort, the opposite happens. You slowly become someone who avoids effort, delays action, and settles for less than what is possible. And here is what makes this so powerful and so dangerous. The difference between these two paths is not obvious at first. In the beginning, both lives may look the same. One extra hour of sleep does not seem like failure. One missed opportunity does not seem like a loss. One moment of distraction does not feel like a problem. But over time, the gap widens. The person who consistently chooses growth begins to move ahead. Slowly at first, then more noticeably. Skills develop, confidence builds, opportunities appear. Meanwhile, the person who chooses comfort remains where they are, wondering why nothing is changing. This is how the future is shaped, not by sudden breakthroughs, but by repeated decisions between comfort and growth. And perhaps the most important realization is this: you will never eliminate the choice. It will always be there, every day, in different forms, in different situations. The goal is not to become perfect. The goal is to become aware, to pause in those small moments and ask yourself a simple question: is this choice leading me toward comfort or toward growth? Because once you begin asking that question, you take back control, you stop drifting, you stop reacting, you start choosing intentionally. And in doing so, you begin to build a future that is not based on what feels easy, but on what truly matters. Chapter 4: The Decisions You Don't Notice. Some of the most powerful decisions in your life are the ones you never realize you're making. They don't feel like decisions at all. There's no pause, no deep thinking, no moment of reflection. They happen automatically, quietly guiding your actions, shaping your habits, and ultimately defining your future without your awareness. This is the hidden layer of your life: unconscious decisions. Most people believe they are in control of their choices, but in reality, a large part of daily behavior is driven by patterns, surroundings, and influences that operate beneath conscious thought. You don't always decide what to do. You often respond to what is around you. Your environment is constantly making decisions for you. The moment you wake up and reach for your phone without thinking, that is not a planned choice. It is a conditioned response. The hours that slip away scrolling, the distractions that pull your attention, the habits you repeat without questioning, they are all shaped by what your environment makes easy and available. This is why two people with the same goals can end up in completely different places. One is surrounded by focus, discipline, and growth. The other is surrounded by distraction, comfort, and delay. Over time, their environments quietly push them in different directions. And the most dangerous part is this: you rarely notice it happening because unconscious decisions feel normal. They don't trigger alarms. They don't feel wrong. They simply feel like this is how things are. But what feels normal is often just what you have repeated long enough to stop questioning. Another powerful influence on your unnoticed decisions is the people around you. Human beings are deeply shaped by social environments. You begin to think like the people you spend time with. You start to adopt their habits, their standards, their attitudes, often without intention. If the people around you prioritize growth, learning, and discipline, you naturally begin to move in that direction. But if your circle is built around comfort, distraction, and low standards, those behaviors slowly become your default as well. You may believe you are making independent choices, but in many cases, you are simply aligning with what your environment has made normal. Take something as simple as spending habits. If your friends frequently spend money impulsively, it becomes easier for you to do the same. It feels acceptable. It feels expected. But if your environment values saving, investing, and thoughtful decisions, your behavior begins to reflect that instead. The same applies to time, focus, ambition, and even mindset. This is how unnoticed decisions shape your life, not through force, but through influence. And this is why awareness is so powerful. Because the moment you become aware, the invisible becomes visible. You start to notice the patterns you were once blind to. You begin to question why you do what you do. You see how your environment is shaping your behavior, how your surroundings are guiding your actions, and how your daily life is being influenced without your permission. Awareness breaks autopilot living. It interrupts the cycle of unconscious decisions and gives you the ability to choose again, this time intentionally. Instead of reaching for your phone automatically, you pause. Instead of following the crowd without thinking, you question. Instead of repeating the same habits, you examine them. And in that pause, something powerful happens. You regain control. Because the goal is not to eliminate influence, you cannot completely escape your environment or the people around you. The goal is to design it consciously, to place yourself in environments that support the person you want to become, to surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, and push you toward growth rather than comfort. When you change your environment, you change the decisions that feel natural, and when better decisions become natural, your life begins to change without constant struggle. But this requires honesty. You have to be willing to look at your current environment and ask difficult questions. Is this helping me grow? Are the people around me lifting me up or holding me back? Are my surroundings encouraging focus or feeding distraction? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary, because ignoring them keeps you stuck in patterns you don't even realize you are repeating. The truth is, your life is not only shaped by the decisions you consciously make, it is also shaped by the ones you don't notice, the automatic reactions, the environmental influences, the social patterns that quietly guide your behavior. And once you begin to see this clearly, you gain a powerful advantage. You stop blaming luck. You stop waiting for motivation. You start understanding the system behind your actions. And from that understanding comes control. Not perfect control, not instant transformation, but real, meaningful influence over the direction of your life. Because now, instead of being shaped by your environment, you begin to shape it. Instead of being influenced by others without awareness, you choose who and what influences you. And that is the moment your life starts to shift from unconscious reaction to intentional creation. Chapter 5. Time, the silent judge of your choices. Time does not argue with you, warn you, or remind you. It simply watches, records, and reveals. It is the most silent force in your life, yet the most honest one. While people can misunderstand you, circumstances can confuse you, and emotions can mislead you, time never lies. It does not care about your intentions, your excuses, or your plans. It only reflects what you consistently do, and in the end, it exposes everything. Every decision you make, no matter how small, gets recorded by time. Not in a visible way, not instantly, but gradually. Like a quiet observer, time collects your actions day after day, stacking them into results that will eventually become impossible to ignore. This is why the impact of your choices is not always immediate. A single day of distraction does not ruin your life. A single day of discipline does not transform it. But time does not judge you based on one day. It judges you based on patterns. What you repeat, time remembers. Good choices often feel unrewarded in the beginning. You wake up early, you study, you work hard, and nothing seems to change. Progress feels slow. Results feel distant. It can feel as if your effort is invisible. But time is quietly working in your favor, because every good decision you repeat is being stored, multiplied, and strengthened. And one day, without warning, the results begin to appear. Skills improve, opportunities open, confidence grows, and suddenly it looks like success happened quickly, when in reality it was built slowly. On the other hand, bad choices often feel harmless at first. Wasting time, avoiding responsibility, choosing comfort again and again, It does not create immediate consequences. In fact, it can feel enjoyable, easy, comfortable, but time is also recording those decisions. And just like good habits, bad habits compound. The effects remain hidden in the beginning, but they do not disappear. They grow quietly, waiting for the moment when they can no longer be ignored. This is why time rewards and punishes later. It delays both the benefits of discipline and the cost of neglect. And because of that delay, most people get confused. They mistake a lack of immediate consequences for a lack of impact. But time never forgets. Every wasted hour, every missed opportunity, every repeated delay, it all accumulates, and eventually it shows up as regret, stress, or limitation. Time doesn't forgive wasted moments, not because it is cruel, but because it is consistent. Once a moment passes, it is gone forever. You cannot go back and recover a lost hour. You cannot undo a year of inaction. You cannot reclaim time that was spent without purpose. That is what makes time so valuable and so dangerous. Because every day, whether you realize it or not, you are making an investment. You are either investing your time into something that will grow your future, or you are spending it in ways that slowly reduce your potential. There is no neutral day. There is no pause. Even doing nothing is a decision with consequences. Every day is either a step forward or a step backward, and the difference between those two paths is often invisible in the beginning. Take something as simple as money. Saving a small amount daily does not feel life-changing. It feels slow, almost insignificant. But over time, that discipline builds stability, security, and freedom. It creates options. On the other hand, wasting money daily does not feel dangerous at first. It feels normal. It feels manageable. But over time, it builds stress, limitation, and dependence. It removes options. The same principle applies to time. Small daily investments, learning, working, improving, build a strong future. Small daily losses, distraction, delay, avoidance, build a fragile one. And here is the most important truth. Time is always moving forward. It does not wait for you to be ready. It does not slow down when you feel lost. It does not pause when you make mistakes. It keeps going, quietly, consistently, without interruption. Which means your future is not something far away. It is being created right now, in real time. The person you will become in 1 year is not determined by a single moment of change. It is determined by what you repeatedly do between now and then. That is the silent judgment of time. It does not need to speak. It simply shows you the result of your choices. And when that moment comes, when time reveals what your actions have built, you will not be able to argue with it. You will only be able to recognize it. So the question is not whether time will judge your decisions. It will. The question is, what will it reveal? Will it show growth, discipline, and progress? Or will it reveal delay, distraction, and regret? Because every day you are writing that answer. And the most powerful realization you can have is this: you still have time, but only if you use it, not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Chapter 6. The identity you are creating right now. Long before you see results in your life, you become the kind of person who creates them. This is the part most people overlook. They focus on outcomes, success, money, recognition, progress, but ignore the deeper transformation happening beneath the surface. Because before your life changes on the outside, your identity changes on the inside. And that identity is being built right now through every choice you make. Your choices are not just actions, they are signals. Every time you act, you are casting a vote for the type of person you are becoming. When you choose to focus, you are voting to become disciplined. When you choose to delay, you are voting to become someone who procrastinates. When you choose to learn, you are voting to become someone who grows. These votes may feel small, but they add up, because you do not become someone overnight. You become someone through repetition. You become what you repeatedly do. If you consistently act with discipline, even in small ways, Discipline becomes part of your identity. If you consistently avoid effort, delay decisions, and seek comfort, that pattern also becomes part of who you are. And once an identity is formed, it begins to shape your future decisions. This is where the cycle becomes powerful. At first, your actions shape your identity, but over time, your identity starts shaping your actions. A disciplined person does not need constant motivation. They act because it aligns with who they believe they are. A focused person does not struggle as much with distraction. They naturally protect their time because it matches their identity. In the same way, someone who sees themselves as lazy or undisciplined will continue to make choices that reinforce that belief. Not because they cannot change, but because their identity is guiding their behavior. This is why real change is not just about setting goals, it is about shifting identity. And here is where many people get it wrong. They try to change by changing labels instead of actions. They say, I want to be disciplined, I want to be successful, I want to be focused. But wanting is not enough. Labels do not create identity. Actions do. You do not become disciplined by saying you are disciplined. You become disciplined by acting disciplined, repeatedly, consistently, even when it feels uncomfortable. At first it will feel unnatural. It will feel like effort. It will feel like you are forcing yourself. But that is the process of change. You are breaking an old identity and building a new one. And every small action matters. Even something as simple as keeping a promise to yourself, waking up on time, completing a task, staying focused for an extra 10 minutes. These are not just tasks completed. They are identity reinforced. Because each time you follow through, you send a message to yourself. This is who I am, and over time that message becomes belief. Take the example of someone who says, I am not disciplined. At first that may feel true. It may be based on past behavior, past failures, past patterns. But the moment that person starts acting differently, waking up early, staying consistent, completing what they start, they begin to challenge that identity. The first few actions feel difficult. They feel temporary. But with repetition, something changes. The statement, I am not disciplined, slowly loses its power, and a new identity begins to form, not through words but through proof. I am becoming disciplined, and eventually, with enough repetition, I am disciplined. This is how transformation happens, not in a single moment, but in repeated decisions that align with the person you want to become. But here is the challenge. Your current identity will try to pull you back. If you have spent years acting a certain way, your mind will resist change. It will tell you to return to what feels familiar. It will remind you of your past. It will try to keep you within the boundaries of your old identity. This is where most people stop. They take a few new actions, face resistance, and then fall back into old patterns. Not because they are weak, but because they underestimate how powerful identity is. But if you continue, if you keep acting differently despite the resistance, you begin to weaken the old identity and strengthen the new one. And eventually the new way becomes natural. That is when change becomes permanent. Because once your identity shifts, your decisions become easier. You no longer rely on willpower for every action. You act in alignment with who you are, and that is the ultimate goal. Not to force yourself to act differently for a short time, but to become someone for whom those actions are normal. Because when your identity changes, your future changes automatically. You no longer need to fight every decision. You no longer need constant motivation. You simply act in a way that reflects who you have become. And that is why this chapter matters. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, you are building an identity. Through your habits, through your choices, through your daily actions. The question is not whether you are creating one. You already are. The question is it the identity you want to carry into your future? Chapter 7. The Cost of Delay. The most expensive decisions in your life are often the ones you choose not to make. Delay feels harmless in the moment. It doesn't create immediate pain. It doesn't demand attention. It quietly tells you, you can do it later. And because there is no urgent consequence, it feels safe to wait. But what feels safe now often becomes costly later. Procrastination is not just a habit, it is a form of hidden debt. Every time you delay an important action, you are pushing responsibility into the future. And just like financial debt, it does not stay the same. It grows, it accumulates, it adds pressure. One missed task becomes two become a backlog becomes stress, and over time, what once felt like a small delay turns into something overwhelming. This is how procrastination compounds. At first, the weight is light, almost unnoticeable, but as time passes, it becomes heavier, more difficult to manage, more stressful to face, and eventually, it reaches a point where even starting feels difficult. That is the real cost of delay. It does not stay small. Every time you postpone action, you are not just delaying progress. You are increasing future pressure. You are making the task harder, not easier. You are turning something simple into something complex. And yet the mind continues to believe the same lie: I will do it later when I feel ready. But readiness rarely comes on its own. In fact, the longer you wait, the less ready you feel, because delay creates doubt. It weakens confidence, it builds resistance, and what once felt like a small step forward begins to feel like a difficult climb. This is why so many people stay stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they keep delaying the moment of action. And while they wait, time keeps moving. Opportunities do not pause for hesitation. They do not wait for you to feel comfortable. They appear, they exist for a moment, and then they move on. This is one of the harshest truths about life. There are doors that only stay open for a limited time, chances that only exist in a specific moment, paths that become unavailable once they are ignored long enough. And when those opportunities pass, they rarely return in the same form. The cost of delay is not always visible immediately, but it reveals itself later, in the form of missed chances, lost growth, and silent regret. Because one day, you will look back and realize that it was not lack of talent or lack of opportunity that held you back. It was delay, the decision to wait, the decision to postpone, the decision to tell yourself, not now. And that is when delay transforms into regret. Regret is not loud in the beginning. It does not appear instantly, but over time it grows. It shows up in quiet moments, when you compare where you are to where you could have been. It appears when you see others moving forward, while you remain in the same place. It appears when you realize that the time you thought you had is no longer available, and perhaps the most painful part is this. Regret often comes with clarity. You begin to see exactly what you should have done. You understand the choices you avoided. You recognize the opportunities you ignored. But by then, time has already moved forward. This is why delaying action is not neutral. It is a decision with consequences. Take something as simple as learning a skill. At first, delaying it feels insignificant. You tell yourself you will start next week, next month, or when you have more time. But weeks turn into months, months turn into years. And while you are waiting, the world keeps changing. Others learn, others improve, others take the opportunities that require the very skill you chose to delay. And eventually, you find yourself in a position where you are not just starting late, you are catching up. That is the cost, not just the time lost, but the opportunities that came with it. But here is the important truth. Delay is a pattern, not a single event. It is built through repeated moments of hesitation, small decisions to wait, small choices to avoid discomfort, small acts of postponement that slowly shape your behavior. And because it is a pattern, it can also be broken. The solution is not to eliminate all delay instantly. That is unrealistic. The solution is to interrupt it, one decision at a time, to act when you feel the urge to postpone, to start before you feel ready, to take a small step instead of waiting for the perfect moment. Because action breaks the cycle. The moment you act, even in a small way, you reduce the pressure. You regain control. You shift from delay to progress. And that shift, repeated consistently, changes everything. Because the opposite of delay is not perfection, it is movement. It is choosing to move forward despite discomfort, despite uncertainty, despite not feeling fully prepared. And in doing so, you remove the hidden cost that delay continues to build. The truth is simple, but not easy. What you delay today will cost you tomorrow. Not always in obvious ways, not always immediately, but eventually, without exception. So the question becomes, what are you postponing right now? What action are you avoiding? What decision are you delaying? What step are you waiting to take? Because the longer you wait, the more it will cost. And the moment you act, the cost begins to disappear. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you finally stop paying the price of delay. Chapter 8. Environment shapes every choice. You are not as independent in your decisions as you think. You are deeply influenced by what surrounds you. Every day, your environment is quietly guiding your actions, shaping your habits, and influencing your choices in ways you rarely notice. You may believe that your success or failure depends on willpower, discipline, or motivation, but in reality, your surroundings often have a stronger impact than any of those, because what is around you determines what is easy, and what is easy is what you repeat. Your environment is not just the physical space you live in. It includes your digital world, the people you interact with, the objects within your reach, and the systems that structure your day. All of these elements are constantly sending signals to your brain, telling you what to do, what to focus on, and what to ignore. If your environment is filled with distractions, your focus will suffer. If your surroundings encourage productivity, your actions will naturally align with it. This is why willpower alone is not enough. You can be motivated for a short time, you can push yourself for a few days, but if your environment constantly works against you, it becomes exhausting to stay consistent. Eventually, the environment wins. Think about how often your digital environment controls your behavior. A notification appears, and without thinking, you check your phone. You open one app, then another, minutes turning into hours. It does not feel like a decision. It feels automatic. That is not a lack of discipline. That is an environment designed to capture your attention. The same happens in your physical space. If your workspace is cluttered, it becomes harder to focus. If distractions are within reach, they become easier to choose. If your tools for growth are hidden or inconvenient, you are less likely to use them. Your environment is constantly shaping your behavior, not by force, but by convenience. This is why designing your environment is one of the most powerful things you can do. Because when you change your environment, you change what feels natural. Instead of relying on constant effort, you create conditions where the right choice becomes the easy choice. If you want to read more, place a book where you can see it. If you want to reduce distractions, remove unnecessary apps or limit notifications. If you want to focus, create a space that supports concentration rather than interruption. Small changes in your environment can lead to big changes in your behavior. And the opposite is also true. If you keep triggers of bad decisions around you, they will continue to influence your actions. A phone placed next to you while studying is not just an object. It is a constant invitation to distraction. Every notification, every vibration, every glance pulls your attention away from what matters. Even if you resist once, twice, or a few times, the presence of that trigger increases the likelihood of giving in. Over time, this repeated distraction weakens your ability to focus and reduces the quality of your work. This is why removing negative triggers is just as important as adding positive ones. Success is not only about what you start doing, it is also about what you stop allowing. You do not need to fight distractions constantly if you remove them before they become a problem. And this principle extends beyond objects. It applies to people as well. The individuals you spend time with influence your decisions more than you realize. Their habits, attitudes, and behaviors create a standard that you naturally begin to follow. If you are surrounded by people who prioritize growth, you are more likely to adopt similar habits. If you are surrounded by those who avoid effort and seek constant comfort, that behavior becomes easier to accept. This is not about judging others, it is about understanding influence. Because over time, what surrounds you becomes part of you. And if you are not careful, you can slowly adapt to an environment that does not support the life you want to build. But the moment you become aware of this, you gain control. You begin to see that your environment is not fixed. It can be changed. You can choose where you spend your time. You can adjust your surroundings. You can remove what weakens you and add what strengthens you. You can design your environment to match your goals. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You no longer rely on constant motivation. You no longer fight the same battles every day. Instead, your environment begins to support you. It guides your actions in the right direction. It reduces resistance. It makes progress easier. Because the truth is simple. Your environment is always shaping your choices. The question is whether it is shaping them in your favor or against you. And once you take control of that, your daily decisions begin to change without constant struggle. Not because you became stronger overnight, but because you became smarter about what surrounds you. Chapter 9. The Turning Point Decision. There comes a moment in every life when a single decision quietly changes everything. It does not always feel dramatic. There is no music, no spotlight, no clear signal that says, "This is it." In fact, it often feels like an ordinary moment, just another choice, just another day. But hidden inside that moment is the power to redirect your entire future. This is what we call a turning point. A turning point is not created by time. It is created by awareness. It is the moment you finally see your life clearly, the patterns, the habits, the direction you are heading, and decide that something must change. Before that moment, you may have been moving on autopilot, repeating the same behaviors, following the same routines, accepting the same results, not because you wanted to stay the same, but because you never fully paused to question it. But awareness changes everything. The moment you become aware of where your current choices are leading you, you stand at a crossroads. One path continues the same pattern, the other demands something different. And that is where the real challenge begins. Because recognizing the need for change is not enough. You must choose it. And choosing differently requires courage. It requires stepping away from what feels familiar. It requires letting go of habits that once felt comfortable. It requires facing uncertainty without guarantees. That is why many people reach the edge of a turning point and then step back. They see what needs to change, but they hesitate. They delay. They tell themselves, maybe later. And in doing so, they return to the same path, repeating the same outcomes. But for those who choose to step forward, everything begins to shift. Because one powerful decision can redirect your entire life. Not instantly, not magically, but directionally. It sets you on a new path. A path that leads to different habits, different environments, different results. And over time, that new direction creates a completely different future. Think about what it means to quit a toxic habit. For a long time, it may feel impossible. The habit feels familiar. It feels like part of your life, even part of your identity. You know it is holding you back, but letting go feels uncomfortable. Then one day, something changes. You see the cost more clearly. You recognize the impact it is having on your time, your energy, your potential, and in that moment of clarity, you make a decision, not to continue, but to stop. That decision becomes your turning point. It does not solve everything immediately. There will still be challenges. There will still be moments of temptation. But the direction has changed. And that is what matters. Because once the direction changes, your future begins to change with it. The same is true when you decide to start something new. A new discipline, a new habit, a new way of living. At first it feels small, almost insignificant. But that decision to begin, to commit, to take action, sets everything in motion. It creates momentum, and momentum is powerful, because once you start moving in a new direction, it becomes easier to continue. Small actions lead to more actions, progress builds on progress, and slowly, the new path begins to feel more natural than the old one. But it all starts with one decision, one moment of courage, one choice to say, "I will not continue like this." And here is the truth most people overlook. Turning points are not rare. They happen more often than you think. Every time you become aware of a pattern, every time you recognize a choice that is not serving you, every time you feel that quiet voice telling you to do something different, that is an opportunity for a turning point. But not every opportunity becomes one, because a turning point only exists when a decision is made. Without action, awareness fades. Without courage, clarity disappears, and the moment passes, leaving everything unchanged. That is why the difference between people who transform their lives and those who stay the same is not knowledge, it is decision. It is the willingness to act on what they already know, to choose differently, even when it feels difficult, to move forward, even when it feels uncertain, because at the end of the day, your life is not shaped by what you understand. It is shaped by what you decide. And somewhere in your life right now, there is a decision waiting to be made, a choice you have been delaying, a change you have been avoiding, a change you have been avoiding, a step you know you need to take. That is your turning point. It may not look important, it may not feel urgent, but it holds more power than you realize. Because once you choose differently, you begin to live differently, and once you live differently, your future cannot remain the same. The direction has already changed. Chapter 10. The future you are building today. Somewhere ahead of you, a future version of yourself is quietly living the results of the choices you are making today. That version of you is not distant or imaginary. It is real, and it is being created right now through your actions, your habits, your decisions. Every step you take today is shaping what that future will look like, how it will feel, and who you will become when you finally arrive there. And whether you realize it or not, your future self is watching, not in a literal sense, but in a deeper, more powerful way. Every action you take sends a message forward in time. It tells your future self what kind of life you are preparing for them. It tells them whether you cared enough to build something strong, or whether you chose what was easy instead. This is the connection most people fail to see. They treat today as separate from tomorrow. They believe they can live one way now and expect a different result later. But life does not work like that. There is no separation. There is only continuity. Today flows directly into tomorrow. What you do now becomes what you live later. That is why every action matters. Not because it changes everything instantly, but because it contributes to everything eventually. A single day of studying may not feel powerful. It may feel small, almost insignificant. But that day is not alone. It is part of a pattern. And when that pattern continues, it becomes something much greater. Studying today builds knowledge. Knowledge builds confidence. Confidence creates performance. And performance opens doors. But it all begins with that one simple decision, to sit down, to focus, to learn. And the same principle applies in every area of life. Your health, your finances, your relationships, your mindset, all of them are shaped by repeated daily actions. Small choices that seem unimportant in the moment, but become undeniable over time. Because consistency determines destiny. Not intensity, not occasional effort. Not short bursts of motivation. Consistency. It is not what you do once that defines your future. It is what you do repeatedly. You can have one perfect day and it will not change your life. But you can have many ordinary days, aligned with the right actions, and it will transform everything. This is where most people lose focus. They search for big changes, dramatic breakthroughs, instant results. They want something that feels powerful immediately. But the truth is, real power comes from repetition, from showing up again and again, from choosing the same positive action even when it feels small, from continuing when there is no immediate reward, because over time those repeated actions build something unstoppable. And yet the opposite is also true. Inconsistency creates uncertainty. When your actions are scattered, your results become unpredictable. You start something, then stop. You make progress, then lose it. You move forward, then fall back. And over time, this pattern creates frustration. Not because you are incapable, but because you are not consistent. Your future cannot be stable if your present is unstable. That is why today matters so much. Today is not just another day. It is a building block, a foundation. And like any foundation, it determines the strength of what comes next. If the foundation is weak, built on distraction, delay, and inconsistency, then everything built on top of it becomes fragile. But if the foundation is strong, built on focus, discipline, and intentional action, then your future has something solid to stand on. This is the responsibility of the present moment. It is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is about asking yourself, are my actions today building the life I want to live tomorrow? Because your future self cannot change what you do now. They can only live with it. They will either benefit from your discipline or struggle with your neglect. They will either thank you for your effort or question your choices. And one day, you will become that future self. You will wake up in that life. You will look around and see what has been built. And in that moment, there will be no confusion about how you got there. It will be clear. Every choice, every habit, every action, it will all make sense. And that is why today is so powerful, because it is not just about what you are doing, it is about what you are creating. Every moment is an opportunity to build something better, to take a step forward, to strengthen your future instead of weakening it, even when it feels small, even when it feels slow, even when it feels like nothing is changing, because something is always changing. You are either building momentum or losing it. You are either moving closer to your goals or drifting away from them. There is no neutral ground. And the more you understand this, the more intentional your actions become. You begin to see your time differently. You begin to value your decisions more. You begin to recognize that the life you want is not something you find. It is something you build, day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. So when you sit down to work, you are not just completing a task, you are shaping your future. When you choose to learn, you are not just gaining knowledge, you are expanding your possibilities. When you choose discipline over comfort, you are not just making a hard decision, you are creating a life with more freedom. And when you repeat these choices consistently, you create something powerful, a future that reflects your effort, a life that aligns with your intentions, a version of yourself that is stronger, more capable, and more prepared. That is the real meaning behind everything you have learned in this journey. Your future is not something that arrives unexpectedly. It is something you are building right now, in ways you may not fully see yet. And one day, you will see it clearly. You will stand in the life your choices created, and in that moment, there will be only one question that matters. Did you build it intentionally, or did you let it happen by default? Because the answer to that question is being written today. The life you are hoping for is not ahead of you. It is being quietly built by what you choose to do today. Everything you will become is already taking shape through your daily actions, not through big promises or distant plans, but through the small decisions you repeat when no one is watching. There is no such thing as a future change without present action. What you delay today does not magically improve tomorrow. It simply carries forward. This is where real transformation begins, not in dramatic moments but in small improvements, a little more focus, a little more discipline, a little more awareness. These may seem insignificant now, but over time they create a powerful shift. Because when small changes are repeated consistently, they don't stay small, they become life-changing. And the truth is, regret rarely comes from one big failure. It comes from the small decisions you ignored, the chances you delayed, the habits you allowed to continue, the moments you thought didn't matter, but eventually defined everything, because the future is not something that waits for you. It is something that is being built, right now, in real time, through every action you take. And in this moment, you still have control. One choice today can begin to rewrite your entire life path. One decision can shift your direction. One action can start a chain reaction that leads somewhere completely different. So imagine this. One day you come face to face with your future self. They look at you not with judgment, but with honesty. Would they thank you for what you started today? Or would they quietly ask why you waited?